Welcome to CRE Unplugged. I'm your co-host, Ryan Elazari. Nadine won't be with us today, but we do have an exciting show for you. Today's guest is someone who's shaking up the CRE tech world in a way that very few people are bold enough to do. Bill Douglas, co-author of Peak Property Performance and CEO behind OpticWise's push into true digital strategy, is here to challenge everything you think you know about data, operations, and technology in real estate. Bill isn't talking theory. He is in the trenches helping owners untangle siloed systems, regain control of their data, and build tech roadmaps that actually move NOI. This is one of those conversations that's going to make you rethink how your portfolio works, what your vendors tell you, and what's actually possible when technology becomes a strategic weapon instead of a line item. Brace yourself. He is about to bring the straight talk that this industry needs. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Ryan. That's quite the intro, and I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you. It's been a minute since the last saw each other.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy. Yeah, I got to see you at PropTech New York. Where are you hailing from right now?
I am sitting in Golden, Colorado, just west of Denver, against the mountains. Okay. Little college town against the mountains west of Denver.
Are you a skier?
Yes, I'm skiing for 40 years. So yeah, I like to ski.
Yeah, I started learning how to ski about 10 years ago. So I've still got some fear of going down the mountains, but I'm getting there.
Well, I had two sons that are now 28 and 31, but when they were little guys, 4, 5, and 6, we went every weekend. It was my dad time. So we got a lot of runs in until they graduated and went off to college. So it was my dad time during the winter, every Saturday.
Yeah, I think skiing is such a great sport, and I think it's something that it's great for young kids to do so that they can kind of feel more comfortable to do it as they get older.
One of the things I discovered is when they're sitting with a helmet on, goggles next to you, not looking at you like the dinner table, they tell you everything. It's like they're on a truth serum. They're just like, oh yeah, my friend's experimenting with drugs, or, oh, I'm not doing that well in class, or, I like that girl, and you're just sitting in a ski lift. You have 11 minutes to the top, and you didn't even ask, but they just start to share. It's interesting. It's like, wow, the drive up to the mountains and the ski lifts, it's the truth serum time. It's wonderful.
Do you think it's like the adrenaline rush and that kind of gets them to kind of feel comfortable to kind of share more about their personal lives?
I never thought about that, but that would easily explain it. And they don't feel like they're being judged because they're not facing you. Like they're sitting next to you. And all you do is look forward, right? Because nobody wants to, especially the kids. They got to get their ski boots up on the rail and all that. So that's a great theory. But all I know is the outcome. And it was wonderful. I enjoyed all those times. Sometimes we get stuck on the roads because the storm would blow in. Couldn't get home and sleep in a shelter and go ski the next day instead of school. They tell the stories now. It's fun. But I still go. I ski a lot less, but I go.
That's great. And I know that you're very active and you like to do a lot of stuff outdoors. So we'll get into it later when I ask you about how you unplug. But I want to really talk about how this industry is at a crossroads. Owners want to use tech, but the market is full of noise and conflicting incentives. So why are we in such a critical juncture of our industry?
I think we're at a transition point where, we call it the old way, the new way. The old way was to operate the building as an asset and just rent space. And the new way is your asset has much more infrastructure that has an impact on the returns. So it's now a data and digital driven asset instead of just being space to rent. Now the tenants, whether they're office tenants or apartment tenants or whatever tenants you have, if guest and hospitality, an overnight guest, they expect a different user experience, and you can't optimize without data. You can build a great building and operate it, but you tap out. And then given how much we've seen utilities and insurance increase over the past 5 years, the industry is being forced to find more ways to optimize. And then we have states like New York and California that are mandating, emissions on commercial real estate buildings and fining very heavily, like Maserta, like things like
Yeah.
that. That's driving change. And we have a lot of ownership firms that are aging out, baby boomers transitioning, and the new regimes are more open to looking at digital and data as a strategy, and not just thinking that technology, as you said in the introduction, we believe technology is not an expense, it's an asset, and it should have a known return. So we're just going to talk about data and digital as a strategy, not necessarily how to do AI. I think AI is being oversold in the industry. Like, hopefully we'll talk about that too, because you and I shared that at that conference.
Yeah.
But don't build your portfolio for occupancy, build it for intelligence. And if you do that, then the asset itself, when you go to buy it or sell it, is more valuable. Like, if you buy it, if you buy something that has a data set, there's less risk. If you sell it with a data set, it's worth more. The cap rate might not change, but the value of the data itself, we've seen that impact a sale price by $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 on top of the normal calculation. So, and that's just for an average size building. Bigger ones are obviously much more. So the days of ignoring technology or leaving that to the tenant, like, how many times have you heard, we just rent space? Like, we just rent.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody in a good market just rents space anymore. If they do, then their occupancy is low. So I think that's the big transition. Is there's a lot of tools that they have at their fingertips, but assembling them and deploying them is not a simple task. It's not difficult, but it's very tedious.
I think the old ways back, this is before COVID, you had a lot of office owners who they signed the 5 to 10 year leases, gave the keys to the tenant, and said, "See you when we talk renewal." I don't think that is happening anymore. You have to be more involved. You have to provide experiences or be hands-on with your tenants. But something you brought up before that I really want to talk about is, isn't it funny that when money comes into the picture, so like you were just mentioning local law 97 and the other energy laws in other cities, that's when owners kind of gravitate towards it and say, "Hey, now we have to do something." Like, why is that? Why can't they be proactive before, like, you get fines or monetary values get hit against a property?
This is the sixth industry I've been in my career. I've been in this one for the technology side of this one for a decade. I've been a passive real estate investor for most of my professional career. I think there's a very strong status quo bias, and there's a history in commercial real estate that about the time the internet was becoming popular, early 2000s, technology failed miserably. There was a big push to have, you heard managed service providers, but there was a big push to have a managed service provider for each building, and it was staffed because it wasn't a scaling opportunity. It was a personnel play, and that failed. And there was a lot of expense. So the old guard, old is probably not the right word, but the regime that's been in place for 20 years still remembers that. So they have a status quo bias that technology and these vendors, can't trust them. They're not doing this right. What if they fail? So $1 million fine from the state or city of New York will make you think differently. There are some properties, it's cheaper to pay the fine than to make the change.
Yeah.
So they still
sure.
have to make a decision. Do they change or do they not change? But it's an extremely strong status quo bias. But we're seeing that the owners that take the reins, like who own their digital infrastructure and actually own and control their data, they're winning. We like to say that everybody else, if it's doing it the old way or the status quo way, they're just subleasing their future to somebody else. And the owners laugh when I say that, but they get the analogy. Like, you have a building, but if you really don't control it, like we talk about in the book, do you think any other industry, you think manufacturing like Toyota or distribution or retail like Amazon would let another company put a network in their building and mine data out of it and sell things inside of their building that they get nothing or very little of, that wouldn't just be a no, that would be a hell no. Like, no way. But commercial real estate does it every day. Every property we walk into, there's some of those relationships. There's networks that the building doesn't own. There's data being mined out of it. And the property owner or the property operator or property manager has no idea where the data is going or who it's for or what that network is. And I can't touch it. So there's no digital strategy. And it's the earlier you do a digital strategy, the more the returns are. The later you do it, the more expensive it is. Because in reactive mode, whether you're talking a new build or a retrofit, reactive mode is very expensive. So I know it was a very long answer, but status quo bias is really, really strong in this industry. And the younger, more tech forward firms from ownership groups are really starting to dominate.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better that people are thinking about being proactive and taking data seriously. Because, as you said in the book, there's a lot of owners out there that have 10 to 20 data points that they don't even own and control, and they're siloed, and there's no way for them to figure out, do we own this system? Do we not? How do we best use the data that's coming to us? Can we best incorporate this data to make better decisions? What can you give us like an example of a property that was able to use all these data points and make smarter, faster decisions?
Oh, certainly. I'll just give you an example of one that we audited last week, 200,000 square foot office building. It had 17 different systems on 13 different networks, like different low voltage networks. So we're not talking about high voltage, anything to plug into the wall to operate things, low voltage networks. 17 systems, I understand. Maybe you need those, but we're seeing more and more of that has overlap. So you probably don't, but let's assume you do, that you really need all 17. You maybe need 2 networks because fire and safety always has to be separate. But why isn't there one digital infrastructure? Think about 17 different operating costs for 17 different networks, not to mention 17 different sets of capital expense for 17 different networks. And none of them were mapped. None of them were documented. So we walked around and did all that in an audit. But if you look at a building we did last year, just during an audit, we found a lighting control system that was installed, never operated, 6-year-old building. We turned it on. The property saved $70,000 in year one, just because they didn't know what they didn't know. The property had been traded after 5 years, and the new owner said, yeah, tell me what I don't know about this building. So we went in and found out. But we typically see operating expenses, I don't know, to networks, a couple $1,000s a month per building, if not per network per month. So if you can think a minimum $50,000 wasted a year just in operating expenses for multiple networks, not to mention the cost to put them in. And then we're not even talking about the efficiencies you could get from putting together the side load data. You should be able to see 3 to 5% utilities decrease, and your next insurance increase should not be 10 or 20%. It should be 1 or 2. If you talk to your underwriter and share the data you're collecting and share your digital strategy, they get it, and they reward the companies that have control of that. So, and then you have the user experience. What kind of user experience could you show to the tenant? Occupancies go way up. Even if you can't raise rents any, you can raise your occupancy. And if you can use these efficiencies to decrease your triple net in an office environment, that's great. But if you reduce overall operating expense in an apartment building, you can keep your rents in check and be more competitive in the marketplace. We've seen apartment owners grab control with a digital strategy, actually lower the rent and make more money. They passed on some of the savings to their tenants, and their building is maximum occupied right now with a wait list because they're competitive in the marketplace. So we see this as being a major needle mover on expense, and in some cases, even adding new revenues. for technology services, depending on the building and the environment and the market. So digital infrastructure generates the data, and you need to own and control both of those. And imagine what you could do with that if you owned and controlled both.
And you're kind of acting as the middleware, correct? So you're going in there, you're auditing these buildings, you're seeing what can be utilized, what needs to be structured and controlled for these owners so that they could have these breakthroughs that you're explaining right now, correct?
Yes, that's correct to some extent. The key point to make is all of this, it's a la carte. It's not all or nothing. So
Okay.
let's just go through the 5C method, right? Clarify. Um, we can do the digital audit for you, digital infrastructure, or you could do it yourself. We send you the form, you can do it. We have lots of clients that have very advanced or very in touch property engineers, property managers, and they want to do it. And it's great. Why go through that expense? So then you know what you own and you don't own relative to data and digital systems, networks, anything low voltage. Maybe it's a cloud system. Maybe there is nothing on-prem, but you still need to know who owns it. What's my data? What's my exposure? What's my expense? What's my return on this? And then shift your expenses accordingly to match your strategy. So once you clarify, then we connect to all these systems to collect the data. So connect and collect are the next big phases. Where the data goes, we have some clients that have a data team that can manage it themselves, and we have some clients that ask us to do it. We enjoy operating the physical digital infrastructure, being the technology partner for the owner. And like if they're going to evaluate a smart, let's say a smart lock, smart thermostat, smart water sensor, or anything like that, send it to our lab and we run it through tests and say, yes, this works, this doesn't, and figure out how to connect it without needing a whole nother network in this building. So you might buy a sensor, Mr. and Mrs. property owner, because you want this value-added service from this vendor, but you don't have to buy a whole nother network. You should run it on one digital infrastructure that's professionally monitored and managed. So we like to do that part, and then we can collect the data, but we don't have to be the collection piece. And then to clarify, that's evaluating the data, taking all those data silos, 17 systems I talked about. Instead of one system at a time looking at their data, you could pull in, maybe you don't pull in all 17 for cost reasons. Maybe you pull in 5 or 6 of the cores and start doing AI and machine learning across those 5 or 6 data silos and finding other opportunities for improvement. And then you coordinate and control. That's the coordination piece. And then control is actually making each system not just talk, but listen. So can your building automation system accept commands from maybe it's your operating platform, or maybe it's integrated with the building access controls that's going to give it a command to say adjust accordingly. We see 100 people walking in the front door right now, and we know by their badges they're going to the 6th floor. So here it comes. Get it. Things like that can reduce your spike on electrical demand, reduce your peak charges, reduce your overall electricity for the month. So that can they talk? If those people are only going to the 6th floor, can I turn off the lights on the 7th floor? Or like this wave of people that's coming in on a Sunday, we know is a church and they're only going to use the auditorium. So don't cool the whole building for this, or don't heat the whole building. Things like that. That's the coordination part and control. So we can do any or all of those or none of those. We actually tell you how to do all of those in the book. The book is not meant to sell. It's meant to be a thought leadership piece, help people come up with a digital strategy. We don't dive into how to do AI. That's very technical. This is a owner operator strategy book. So we like to do all of those. So we can do all, or we can do none, or anywhere in between. Sometimes we do just consulting. So
Yeah,
it's a very long answer, but start small, find a win, identify your team, knock down a few not easy, but knowingly win points right in the beginning. Don't start with something that's so big that it's a home run, because it might take so long. You lose the wind in your sails and your team says, oh, that's another one of those projects. So we talk about all that in the book, and we really work hard on that with our clients. Build momentum.
Yeah, I think going step by step, like easy processes where you're not doing a whole like a bunch of projects all in one, going step by step. I think that's definitely the way to go. One thing I really want to dig into is, and this is something I know you feel strongly about, is these commercial real estate tech conferences. You've got
Hmm.
dreamers on stage, and then you've got like the doers in the audience who are trying to solve real problems. How does this gap like hold the industry back?
It really does hold it back. I think at the conferences, we see the owners and we see a lot of management, but we don't see the people that are actually running the building. So the building engineers and on the ground property managers are often not at a lot of these conferences. So we've glamorized technology without addressing I call it the plumbing, the digital plumbing in the building, which is the digital infrastructure and the data. So the disconnect is large. Like at that PropTech, and just like the other 3 or 4 conferences I attended this fall, it was all the vendors all had AI. If it wasn't AI, it was almost like they couldn't have a booth, right? But
Yeah.
what did that mean? What did that mean to the customer, right? The property owner or the property operator? That language wasn't really articulated. It was like the vendors were chasing, we're giving you AI, but the customer didn't really care because they had already contracted with this vendor for a service. So if the vendor is using AI to reduce the overhead inside of their own company and make more money from the same service, it really doesn't do a value. Right. But our point is the ownership group needs to do their own AI across all of the data silos. That's the big thing we're talking about in the book and our podcast. And, that's the whole thing we engage with clients about. So I think the disconnect is very large because there's we call them the dreamers on stage, right? Not that
Yeah.
the whole industry needs dreamers, but I wish they would have a dreamer sitting there with a doer from the same company and say, all right, he said do this and we did that. She said do that and we did this. And I'd like for somebody to be honest and say, we wanted to do that and this failed.
Yes. Yes.
And
Let's talk
why?
about the failures, right? Let's
Yes,
talk
like
about
failure is a learning
what didn't work.
experience.
Yeah.
But these are so full. All these panels are so full of, yeah, we're doing everything great and we're winning. But I wanted to know what they were doing. It was buzzword. It was AI. It
Yeah.
was buzzword bingo. And we try to use real language. And if we don't know, we're going to say we don't know. And I wish more people did. Like, let's figure it out. It doesn't mean because we don't know, it doesn't mean we can't do it. Or if we can't do it, we're going to refer somebody who can. There's always a solution, but you got to know what it is. I mean, what the problem is and what you want out of it. Maybe the problem isn't worth addressing. Okay, I know what I don't know, but I'm challenging the audience. What do you not know? Learn what you don't know what you don't know, and then you can make decisions going forward. Address the digital infrastructure and always look at the data. I mean, there's market facing data, which has been PropTech for years. That's the property management, the lease management systems. But looking internal, there's a plethora of operating systems that are not very liberal with the data that they're collecting from this property. They're not willing to give it back. We even see some vendors charging the customer to give their data back, which I am terribly offended by. I think that that's absurd. You're paying, you own an apartment building and you're paying us for a system, PropTech, you know, gobbledygook. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And I've been collecting data for 2 years, and now all of a sudden you want it, and I'm going to charge you $25,000 a year for that API. I think that is an insult. I think you should tell me to pound salt and fire me. Granted, I'm biased, but you know how I feel about asking direct questions to vendors too. Like, you need to protect your interests. So,
So I don't think you agree that we're not really in an AI bubble. I do think AI is going to make big transformations in the real estate industry. I
mhm.
think right now people are probably buying all these solutions that are out there at conferences, or they're probably being seen at webinars or whatnot. But I think you and I both agree here you need to at least have a single source of truth for all this data to be structured so that you can then buy the correct solutions to make the decisions for an owner operator within their properties or within their offices, so that they could be able to make smarter decisions. I think that's what's missing right now in the industry.
Well, I agree with you, but let me add a couple of points of clarification. You said structured data, and that's not necessarily the case. You can have structured, semi-structured, or unstructured data in the right data lake, and AI can work on it. But that's going to take some guidance, of course. We've even seen analog get converted to digital, and it's horribly unstructured. But with the right amount of data, like going back in time, that you can find correlations, you being your machine learning. So let me talk real quick about what AI is, because a lot of commercial real estate still doesn't understand. It's
Yeah.
the tool you use to write a better email. It is AI, but that is natural language processing. The ability to talk like Siri to your phone has been around for a long time. That is natural language processing. You could scan in your lease and your utility bills and they show up in a digital system. That is natural language processing. Then there's machine learning. The machine learning is where AI actually go. These are the three legs of the stool for AI. There's many, many more, but these are the three big buckets. Machine learning goes in and just pores over data and tries to find correlations, tries to find anomalies, tries to find algorithms that are true. And it just runs math incessantly, so much faster than a human being could. And it fails most of the time, but every once in a while, when it finds something, it's gold. So machine learning is the part that most commercial real estate firms can't do yet because they don't have the data set. And then there's robotics process automation. So the simple one I can think of, we had the guest on our show, on our podcast show, was robotic cleaners in the hotel environment. Not only are they cleaning the floor, they are taking readings of the air and the moisture. If there's a water leak, they're gonna know. Maybe the maid missed it. If there's mildew, they're gonna smell it. If there's a chemical spill, or if there's smoking in the room, things like that. It is collecting a massive amount of data. But RPA robotics is actually helping the maid be that much more efficient. Instead of 32 minutes a room, she only needs 18. That kind of thing. And it's her assistant. It's not replacing the maid. It's just making the maid have to do less physical labor by pushing the vacuum. So those are the three legs of the stool. And like when we walked around that conference together, I would challenge you to walk up and ask any of these vendors that say, hey, we are AI. It's just AI for PropTech, AI for this, AI for that. Say, how are you deploying AI and what does it mean to me as a customer? I don't want you to bust their chops. I just want you to be open to learning, because they want to share it with you. And if they don't know, they'll go find the answer too. And if they can't answer it, then there's your answer. Don't buy
Yeah,
it
well,
because it's AI, buy it because it has value.
right. And I think this is something you outline in your book. There's 12 critical questions you should be asking. Every owner should be asking to a vendor. So which of these tend to expose like the biggest gaps or red flags in the vendor community?
The biggest one to me, and I am a supply chain guy. I actually have a supply chain patent from 2000. I believe that procurement is at the core of almost every company. So just get in the habit of asking anybody that recommends another vendor to you, ask them point blank. And in the commercial real estate world, I would ask point blank the property managers, because they're really good at this. Do you own any piece of that company? Does your company own any piece of that company? Or do you stand to benefit by recommending this company if I sign a contract with them? Meaning, are you getting paid commission for this? Or do you own stock in this company? Because they don't disclose it. They don't have to, mind you. They're not breaking any laws. It's capitalism. But once you ask, then they're going to give you the answer. What if your property manager owned 10% of the company they're recommending to you for that solution? Then maybe you'd go look at 3 or 4 more, right? And vet it. Maybe it is the right one, but at least you would know that's why they're recommending that one. So I think that is the biggest one right away. Like, do you benefit from this? Why are you recommending it? And then if it's genuinely because it works and they've seen it work, say, great, show me those firms, show me those places it worked. Maybe take me to one of them. Right. The second one, the most important one, is who owns the data. Because legally, it might say on paper that the property owns it, but go further and say, where is the data and how do I get my copy? And then I'd say, of all those questions, The next one would be, what happens if I leave? I encourage clients own the property. That's our language. I encourage clients to structure contracts that are not tied to time, but tied to performance. Maybe it's much shorter and it doesn't automatically renew. Maybe it has to have a manual renewal every time, or there are levers, or we have to see this performance, or it does not renew. Do not just lock it down to time. And when it exits, who owns what and what's the exit strategy? One of my mentors early in my entrepreneurial career said, every relationship has an end. Even in a perfect marriage, somebody's going to die, right? This relationship is, not to sound morbid, but so talk about it, plan for it, and document what happens when the relationship ends. That way there's, if the property has moved on to other owners, or the account rep has moved on to another company or moved up inside of their company, this is what we talked about. It's in the contract. So if you terminate a vendor, you should still get all your data. You should still get all the documents for anything data and digital. And if they don't want to play like that, find another one. There are plenty of vendors that do. The vendors want to win with you, but there are some out there that are just getting business because their investors are so well known, or big is better. Nobody got fired for hiring IBM is an old saying that's true in the consulting world. It's not so true in the commercial real estate world. The big is not necessarily better. Do you want to be a small fish in a big pond as a customer, or a big fish in a medium pond? I want to know I can get a hold of my vendor if I need to. I don't want to just do them because they have half the country of this.
Yeah, I think transparency is key. And you have these large property firms who are probably investing in a lot of these companies that they're recommending to their clients. So that's a major conflict of interest. Like how can that be policed? And what measures do you think should be taken so that these owners would realize that this isn't what's best for them?
Well, I don't think it will be policed from a regulatory position, but I think what shifts it is, let's call it sunlight. Owners have to shine the spotlight or open the blinds on it. Owners have to demand it. We have to ask for transparency in contracts. We just do. If we just accept that that's the way it works, it's not the case. If you look at any large major property management firm, they have a venture capital arm. They have a technology consulting arm. We've seen all of them operate, and their financial interests follow them around. The consulting firm makes recommendations. It's all these vendors. They make the money and they're gone. They're not left operating that digital infrastructure like we are. Like, we are accountable. If this system doesn't work, you can one throat to choke, call us up. Anything in the building, low voltage, anything network doesn't work, it's our problem to fix, regardless of what vendor's connected to it. If the network is down, it's our problem, right? How come you don't have that everywhere? Especially if you have 17 networks, it's almost impossible to have. So you have to demand it. And then the venture capital ones don't even have to disclose it, because that's not, maybe you didn't consult with Megaprop, as we call them in the book.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you go to a trade show and this company is being recommended by somebody else, but they're being recommended because there's a venture capital investment, and that's capitalism. It's not illegal. To me, it's, I don't know if unethical is the right word, but if the owner asks the questions and the building engineer, the property manager, the operator asks the questions, transparency will start to be the norm. Like, I believe standards and transparency are the way to operate. I believe that even if we operate one building and our competitor operates another, that those two buildings owners should be able to compare data and see how they're doing. We're still not there yet, but that's my big vision for the industry. Is we have more of a data standard, and we have a platform or an index to judge each property by, if the owner wants to. Like, that would be good for insurance. It would be good for further optimization opportunities. I consult with NYSERDA on this too. Like, how can you encourage them to share more data, help each other, like help the whole city get better, rather than just thinking it's my little fiefdom, this building. So we have to shine a light on it as owners. Just use frameworks like we talk about in the book. Audit what you're signed up for. Look at your contracts regularly. There's scope creep in a lot of these that automatically renew for set periods of time. There's you can weed all those out. Just be a better buyer. We like sports analogies in the book, so we encourage owners to act like an owner, own your damn data. I think we even say in there, but operate from the skybox and assign responsibilities to your coaches. Like delegate and manage rather than trying to do just deals and trust. I believe in trust, but I believe when a property like a business gets bought and the business is a vendor to your property, sometimes the motives of the business has changed, but you're still under contract with them. So you need to refresh your commercial relationships. Look at them. Do your digital audit. What am I paying for? What is this? Could I do without it? If I need it, what's the value of it? Like, let's assign a value. Let's make some shifts. Let's ask more instead of waiting for the vendor to tell me what their roadmap is. Why can't I say, hey, this is where we're going. How do you fit into it? Just simple reframe of the same question. And then the vendor will say, well, this is how we fit into it, because the vendor wants to know what you want. Most of the time, we as vendors are developing solutions based upon what you as owners tell us. So the more you tell us, the more we will solve your problems. There's money in it for everybody. But if you don't tell us, then we're going to go where we think or what we hear and make a solution, and it might not be on point for you, yet you're still paying us. So ask us, how do we fit into your roadmap? And then we will fit into your roadmap. I know every vendor out there will fit into your roadmap.
Yeah, speaking about sports analogies, you talk about having the importance of having a champion inside ownership groups. Who typically fills that role, and what characteristics make a great champion?
We often, if I had to pick a title, we often see a CFO, a COO, or the head of property operations. It's the kind of person that can talk about financial, like NOI, in the same sentence as technology, like API. And I hate to be acronym heavy, but this industry is. So,
it is.
Yeah. They would have to be able to see outcomes rather than an expense. Look at what we're trying to do and what the value of that investment is, right? They're willing to learn digital infrastructure and learn data strategies. They treat technology like an investment. Like, we keep bringing that up, but it is very, very different. Like we see so many clients that have all their technology as an expense line item. And I understand if that is a SaaS service, it's an expense line item, but somewhere there's a system that was paid for, and that shouldn't be expense. That should be capitalized with a known return. But we don't assign income, or we don't assign expense reductions to it. So we're not managing or monitoring return. That's why the CFO usually feels really good in there. And they push for clarity, transparency, and governance. So I had this conversation yesterday with a guest on our podcast. IT needs to be heavily involved, but I mean IT from a property operation standpoint, not IT from, I forgot my password, or not IT as in it's our identity security management platform, or here's our directory services for our corporation, and here's our accounting system. IT is running the network in the home office. I mean IT from a digital strategy standpoint, from operations on-prem, on the ground, where your tenants are paying you the money. That IT is very different than IT at the corporate office. So think about digital strategy is not your IT department. Not that they can't do it. They're not staffed to do it, and they're not skilled to do it. So are you willing, Mr. or client or Mrs. Client, to make the investment to up your IT staff and to give them the training to do this? If you are, great guns, go for it. If you're not, find a partner who can do it with you, not necessarily all for you, but with you, can augment your team, work with your team. But your internal team has enough to do. They're already putting out fires everywhere. They already have to deal with their own compliance and their own security and their own data governance. And they're not even doing any digital strategy on-prem in each portfolio asset. It's a whole different skill set and a whole different strategy. So it's just a matter of including that strategy, which is, again, why we came out with a book. Fast Company loved the fact that we were talking about something so direct, like you said, so they were willing to publish it for us.
Yeah, that's what I really love about it is that you're so direct and you're so you make some really strong points in there. And something that I know you've dealt with a lot is you have a lot of firms or potential clients that either ghost you or they come back like the last minute and they are often scrambling to want to use your services. So what do you think this is? Do you think this is just like the risk averse world of our industry, or it's something deeper that we're not seeing right now in this market?
Ryan, that is a very deep question. I was actually venting to my wife this morning at breakfast about how we about this problem because
Yeah.
we jumped through hoops 6 weeks ago to give a client a proposal, have to have it by Friday, and I haven't heard from them in 5.5 weeks. Emails, follow up calls. Their deadline was 4 weeks ago. I assume they're not going to do anything, but they haven't even returned the call. So has the project been delayed? I mean, they're scraping ground. It's a new build, but the longer it goes, what I've seen before is they'll call us back up and say, "Hey, we're about to hang drywall. Can we do this now?" Like, "Oh, you missed all of your CapEx savings because those networks are already installed. But now we're going to have to race to put in the network you really need by the time drywall gets in." So expenses went through the roof. So I've been asking the question a lot, and I've heard everything from I asked an architect 2 weeks ago, and she said, well, a lot of times we see the property management firms deciding on what technology goes in a building. And I said, whoa, hold on. The property management firms are? Well, yes, they're the ones that have to do the leases. So they're the ones and need a network for their office. So they're picking technology. So all of a sudden, property management, who's responsible for leasing up a building and keeping it leased and keeping the tenants happy, is now supposed to be the technical expert and pick PropTech or pick commercial real estate technology and manage a data set from 15 to 18 to 20 systems. That's something you never put in their scope of work. So they're just not going to do it. They're not incented to do it. They're incented to lease the building, which they should be. But property managers are not skilled, especially at the property level themselves. They're not skilled to be the technology expert. So I think a lot of times this is the way we do it. This is the way we build a building. When we buy a building, this is all we do. We let the tenant deal with their own. And I think it's just a matter of time and tenants and transparency. Well, there's 3 T's. I didn't think of
Yeah.
alliteration. That's starting to change it. But I think that property managers do their job extremely well, but this is not their job, nor is managing properties our job. Like the converse is also true. We are not staffed to be an IT department inside of a commercial real estate firm and handle end user calls because they can't get into their, I don't know, their mobile application isn't working. That's not our problem either. So why does it happen? There's a million million examples I could give you, but I don't know the reason. I just keep bringing it up so that hopefully listeners like on your show will start to ask that question inside of their own firm. Who is responsible for our digital strategy in our company? And then to execute it, are we going to either build it, buy it, or hybrid, do it together with another firm? All 3 of those answers work. It's just a matter of which one you want to pick and which resources you have as a firm. Larger firms go to build it. Smaller firms go to outsource it. Mid-sized firms often do a hybrid mix. And that's because capital and cash flow constraints, not for desire, not for knowledge.
I think the cash flow restraints is probably the problem, and I think they're trying to reduce expenses within their company, not to try to hire another person to be a CEO, CIO, CTO. They'll just pass that on to property managers, thinking that they can learn and figure it out themselves. But it's not that simple, and it's not something that's going to work. So you're basically going to create more expenses or more cost onto your company. if you just decided to hire someone that has the experience, has the knowledge, the way that you're going to optimize your buildings and be able to save on so many
Mhm.
costs is unbelievable. I just don't think they're educated enough to know that. They're just thinking dollars and cents. They're not really thinking at the long-term picture. And that's not just in this topic that we're talking about right now. This is in a lot of situations at these with these owner operators.
Well, in small to medium sized firms, do you expect them to have in-house counsel? No, they have an attorney firm they pay by the hour. Do you
Right.
have your in-house CPA? I mean, your tax guru? Maybe, maybe not. Of course, you have your own bookkeeping and a minor accounting, but your accounting strategy, the one that has to keep up with all of the laws and the changes every year, probably not. You probably outsource it. So why don't you think of doing that with your digital strategy as well? Why would you expect your own team to try and keep up with? I mean, we spend a lot of time learning and a lot of time making sure compliance and data governance apply and keeping things secure. Like it is a full-time challenge, but it's what we do. To expect an already time-strapped firm to do it, it's something's going to fall short. You know? So do you like, we do see vertically integrated firms building buildings, but most of the time people are outsourcing them. We see very large, because we do some consulting. We consult with very large REITs. And when they buy a property, they standardize on the digital infrastructure, they standardize on the systems, they standardize on everything else, and then they normalize the data, and then they operate very efficiently. They look at that as an investment and they make it. So a very large REIT might have, you know, a team, a couple dozen people that are digital or data scientists or both, and they spread that across 100,000 units. That you can't do that if you only own 1,000, or you only own 100, or if you only own 10,000. You can't have a team like that, but you can still have the same strategy. You can still do the same execution. You just need to find partners to help you do it, because that way you're not going to be paying the overhead for that team of a couple dozen people at very high salaries. It is a strategy. Do you outsource, do you build, or you buy?
Yeah, I think as you said, having a strong partner really gets you far. But I want to talk about you, Bill. How do you like personally unplug and reset?
Oh, I first of all, I have to get away from screens. I turn my ringer off. I get outside as much as possible. The sunlight and air, even if you're not breathing hard, sunlight and air is, our bodies just need it. But I personally, I need my sleep. So I'm very rigorous about my sleep schedule. I train hard. I work out. I like being fit. I find that my mind is a lot clearer after I'm physically exhausted. I have more energy after the gym. Like this morning, I had a great workout. I knew I had this podcast, so I might as well be clear. I didn't do any work in the morning. I looked over what I thought we were going to talk about, and then went to the gym and came back and had a nice breakfast. So I like to be outside. I like to be with friends. I believe life is a gift, and as much as I like skiing, for instance, I had a near-death experience skiing. So it's another time I've learned that I was taking life for granted. So life is a gift. Every day is precious. Find something precious and be grateful. Even in the worst of days, I could find something. Like my wife had cancer last year. Every day we would find something we appreciated. She's bald and going through chemo, and it's a really scary time, but we found a way to find something to appreciate about each other, or about the day, or about our house, or about the weather, or about something, about family. And it changed our outlook, and it changed our year. Last year was very different than this year. Positivity is infectious. You surround yourself with positive people. So I recharge by disconnecting. I schedule time away from the office. I schedule time to think strategically. I just block out times. I think we work too much in the United States anyway. I think we work too much. I think I can get more done in 35 hours than I can in 50 hours. If I schedule myself for 35 and then leave myself another 10 for open periods, I am more creative and more productive than if I worked for 50 hours that week. And I believe if you work more than 50 hours, something's wrong. Like, and by work, I mean in the business, not on the business.
Right. Right. Yeah.
On the business, I'm kind of always working on. Every time I disconnect, my brain is thinking, "Ooh, we should do that." Like that's where the book idea came from. Like we were just clarifying our thought point on it, and I ended up turning the pitch to 6 different publishers, and we picked one. So there's times where that doesn't feel like work. I mean, if you're working more than 50 hours in your job in the business, then it's too much. Something's wrong. There's an inefficient point somewhere. So allow yourself to disconnect. Allow yourself to go on time, home on time. Don't always have that phone in your hand. Life is too short. I mean, I'm 61 and I've had some interesting times in my life. I've dealt with multiple sclerosis half my life. So I work because it enables the life I want. I don't live to work. I love to work, don't get me wrong, but I do it because it enables the life that I'm designing.
That's really beautiful, Bill, and I'm really glad you shared that. I know you've touched on it on LinkedIn about your near death experience and how that completely transformed your life and how it's made you really love life and try to not take every second for granted. And that's something that I've kind of taken from you. And I always, I have two little kids, and I just try to spend as much time with them because they grow up so fast and you don't know, like all of a sudden one day they're going to be teenagers and you're just going like, where did the time go? So
Mm.
I'm really glad that you can kind of share with the audience your experience and how that's kind of changed your mindset on how to do things. Because yeah, I agree. I mean, I think in the United States we do work too hard. I lived in Barcelona. I studied abroad there, and I remember people taking siestas for 3 hours in the middle of the day. And I'm taking 2 month vacation. So I was always
And depression
wondering
is so
what's
low
going
there.
on here.
Yeah, depression is so low. Busy doesn't mean successful. Because your calendar is full doesn't mean you're a rock star. The most successful people I know, their calendars are open. They have strategic meetings, but there's flexibility in their calendar because they're using their brain and not just their clock.
Yes, and I think more people need to be off the screens, be less disconnected. I think I was listening to a podcast with a psychologist, and she was saying that younger like kids under 16 should not be exposed to social media. You
Mm-hmm.
should not have your phones in the bedroom before you go to sleep. I think unfortunately a lot of people are kind of attached to their phones and they need to get that air and go outside, be with nature, be with life and take that all in. You don't need to be looking at your phone all the time.
The remedy, number one most effective remedy for depression or any I don't feel good is sunlight. Vitamin D. It's just that simple. And if it's overcast and you live in a place you don't have as much sun as we do in Colorado, take vitamin D. Like it's a simple over the counter vitamin. And then air, just breathe. I think we sit inside or we sit still too much and we stare at a screen. So by getting sunlight, your eyes focus on something different. Like you're right here, right? But if I
Yeah.
go outside, I'm going to look at a tree. I'm going to look at the sidewalk. If I go for a walk, I'm going to be focused on all kinds of things, and my eyes are becoming active too, which makes my brain more active. If you exercise your brain, then it genuinely is healthier. Not to mention hydrated and fed and exercised and all that. So, yeah, I just give yourself some time. Be nice to yourself. Not only will you be happier, you'll be more productive. You'll make more money. You'll be surrounded by more people like you. It's infectious.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Where can our audience members find you, Bill?
You can always find me on LinkedIn. If you search Bill Douglas, I'm the one with resilience guy in the middle. Like resilience guy, all one word. Or you can go, it's bill.douglas@opticwise.com. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes. Peak Property Performance has a website and a podcast. You can reach me through that as well. Send info to any of those. I'm sure that it'll come to me. I still answer my emails. I still answer my LinkedIn's. Yeah, I enjoy people, and this is a people business. So I love it when somebody calls up and says, I agree with you, or even better, I disagree with you, or how in the world are we supposed to do that? I love those conversations. We do a lot of free consulting. I believe the industry just has a lot of room for improvement. It's not about just selling something. I'm an engineer. I love solving problems. Our whole firm just solves problems. Sometimes we make money doing it. Sometimes we just help somebody get to where they need to go, and then they're a friend for life. you know?
Yeah, it's so funny. I read your book, and I didn't even know that you were going to be at Cretech, and then I ran into you, and your personality is very infectious. So I'm so happy we got to connect and get you on here.
It's been a pleasure, and I was flattered when you walked up because you said Bill, and I didn't know who you were yet. I mean, I think we had corresponded through LinkedIn, but you found me in person, and we've developed a really nice relationship since. So I appreciate you reaching out and having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. Be sure to stay tuned for my recap after a word from our sponsors. Hey there, CRE Unplugged fam. We would like to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the Game Changers over at Hilo, the customer experience platform for buildings that's turning heads in the real estate world.
That's right. Can we talk about how Hilo is transforming the way we manage properties and create unforgettable experiences? Ryan, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Hilo?
Well, Nadine, it's all about reducing friction in property management. Hilo is like the magic wand that makes everything seamless and efficient. Say goodbye to those time-consuming tasks and hello to streamlined operations and communications.
Efficiency is crucial, but what about personalized experiences? Hilo takes it to the next level with a vision to tailor each interaction to the needs and preferences of its customers.
And let's not forget the community aspect. Hilo builds vibrant, connected communities. It's fostering a sense of belonging and togetherness.
Now, here's something that truly sets Hilo apart: their commitment to advancing ESG initiatives. They're not just about buildings, they're about making a positive impact on the environment. That's a win-win for everyone.
So, to our listeners out there, if you're ready to elevate your properties, digitize and enhance customer experience, and maximize satisfaction, Hilo is the answer. Please visit hiloapp.com for more information. That's hiloapp.com. It was really great to have Bill on the podcast. When I met him at Cretech, we really hit it off with having conversations about what's really important in this industry. And I think most owners are sitting on a gold mine of data without realizing its value. And when data stays siloed, you're draining your NOI, and you need it to become unified and actionable so that you transform your operations and decision making. I also agree with Bill that without a true champion inside the firm, most tech decisions are doomed from the start. When I stepped into my previous role as head of innovation, owning our data, breaking down every vendor conversation, and giving leadership clear, unbiased analysis showed me how often companies can get swayed by sales pitches instead of strategy. The truth is, if no one inside the organization is championing the roadmap, executives are making multi-million-dollar decisions in the dark. What also really hit home for me and struck me was Bill's near-death experience and the way that he shifted his whole philosophy from not just living to work, but living to live. And it really reflected on my own priorities. For me, it's about being intentional with my kids because they grow up fast and those moments don't come back. And his story was a reminder that innovation and tech in the world matters far less if we're not present for the people who matter most. And not being attached to your screens and not being attached to social media, I think, is so important in this day and age. Well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much to Bill Douglas, CEO of OpticWise and co-author of Peak Property Performance. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions that you want us to answer on air, you could reach us or email us at info@creunplug.com, or you could visit our website at www.creunplug.com. See you next time, and keep your conversations real and unplugged.